Welcome to the Ultimate Man podcast. We are back with part two, the episode where we take badass Billy to the top of his game. And anyone who's out there in the state of a broken Billy, Billy, you're our guy. And if your name isn't Billy, that's okay. You can be our Billy. We're going to be taking questions and we're going to be giving answers to all the Billies out there who are representing each of us, the men in the world who are struggling, trying to make a better version of themselves. So Coach Aaron, he's here with us today. He's got a ton of great information. I'm going to get in there and give you some of that information myself, and we're going to bring it to you. So Coach, how you feeling today, brother?
Feeling good, stud. How you doing, brother?
Another good one, man. I'm excited to
Yeah.
do this. And again, we've also had predictions we made on the UFC fight that took place on the weekend. So stick around because towards the end of the episode, we're going to be talking about that as well. And we've got about at least 8 more good quality questions that came from our viewers, from our coaching clients in the past. We've accumulated this wonderful list of questions. And if you're ready to dive in, the first question of the day comes from one of our Billies out there, and it's in regards to intermittent fasting. And the question is one of these controversial topics because a lot of people are for intermittent fasting and a lot of people are against it, and they're saying it doesn't work. Coach Aaron has some experience directly using intermittent fasting, and so do I. And I've even had clients who have gone through different types of protocols because there are different intermittent fasting protocols that you can apply. So the question is, what are your thoughts on intermittent fasting and simultaneously building muscle? That's the way they form the question. So Coach, let's get it, down to, well, first off, what are your thoughts on it? What are your experiences? How have you used intermittent fasting?
Yeah, so I've used intermittent fasting usually in like a 2 meal a day type protocol where I'll have like my first meal at like 10 or 11 a.m. and my last meal like around 6 or 7 p.m. so I can just eat twice a day, and both of those meals are pretty big meals. I kind of got into it for one just because it's really good to kind of decrease your cravings, because once you're in that like ketogenic state, it just your cravings really go bye pretty easily. So it's like, if you're that type of person that's always just like snacking and like, looking for the carbs and the sweets and stuff, you might want to transition to the more of that ketogenic intermittent fasting type scenario, so to curb those cravings. So I really liked it because you could just, your body gets accustomed to it. You just like have a big meal for a late breakfast, and you're just not hungry for hours if you have plenty of substantial proteins and healthy fats in there. Even carbohydrates. A lot of intermittent fasting people have carbohydrates as well. I did more of like a ketogenic intermittent fasting, so my appetite was really reduced. So that was really beneficial for the goals I was trying to achieve at that time. As far as muscle building goes, it worked for me in the respect that I already had a decent amount of muscle on my frame, so I was able to maintain my muscle that I already had pretty easily. So I definitely didn't lose anything on an intermittent fasting, protocol, but I wouldn't probably suggest it as being optimal for someone who was actually really trying to put on a lot of size and mass at the same time.
Hmm. That's
Yeah.
good. That's good advice. The concept of mental clarity is something I want to talk about too, because a lot of people in our world now, as podcasters, we're excited to be in this whole new world for us as coaches, and we're seeing a lot of the podcasters talking about the mental clarity game that they're getting from intermittent fasting. Is that something you noticed when you did, intermittent? Were you noticing your mental clarity much sharper, less brain fog? How did that play out?
Yeah, totally. Mental clarity for sure was elevated a little bit. And more than anything, I think my energy levels were a lot more consistent and steady. Like I just didn't have the highs and lows of the energy swings. Because like,
Right.
when you have a big, carbohydrate meal or something like that, you'll just get the sleepies afterwards, and like your blood sugar goes up and down, and you're just kind of like just not real energetically stable. So I really like that aspect of it too.
Good.
Yeah, and then the cognitive performance. The ketones are supposed to be a lot better just for the brain to run on when you get into like a ketogenic state. So, like you said, a lot of the successful podcasters and stuff, they'll get into a fasting state or something before the podcast, so they could just be really sharp and clear thinking. So, if I'm a little bit slow at all today, it's because I had a big bowl of rice for breakfast and I'm bulking right now and I'm carbo loaded. So that's my excuse if I have any brain farts.
So that means this episode is unedited. We're going to give you the real deal. We're not going to be editing. And actually, we never really do. We just go through and we give you the good, honest truth, the stories and the analogies that I can give you, and Coach Aaron gives you the open book, of everything. So we appreciate that. All our listeners out there, thank you for being part of the Ultimate Man podcast. On the topic of intermittent fasting, I just wanted to share a little story between a husband and a wife who came into me one time as in the brick and mortar world. They came into the gym. They had been looking for a trainer for a few years because they had been in a severe car accident, and they were given physiotherapy. And for years, they were going through physio. It was a very slow approach for them. They both had a determination to fix it and get their life back. They were told they weren't going to work again. They were probably not even going to be able to drive vehicles again. Like, there was a lot of restrictions they were given of, you won't be able to do this. And of course, when people don't believe you can do something, you want to do it even more and prove them wrong. So they were like, I need help. We really need help. And the physio just wasn't getting them there at the rate they wanted. So they said, we're going to try and get a trainer who knows what he's doing. They came to me, which I was honored to be able to work with them. I knew there was a lot of limitation. We were going to have to start slow. Both of them were excessively overweight at that point, and they had to get more of a lifestyle in place. So I started with intermittent fasting. And the reason I did that was because I wasn't sure what their lifestyle calorically was looking like. And it was a bit early in the game, asking them to track calories and things like that. Some people listening aren't even, don't want to track calories. Like, I got no time for that. I'm not a digital, carry my phone around and do that entry type stuff. Great, you don't have to. Intermittent fasting puts a window on you, right? That puts you in a time frame where you're going to start eating by a certain time, and then you're going to only have until that window closes before your last meal can be achieved, and that's it. That's your calories for the day. What it really helps with is restriction to put you at least in a caloric allotment that most often will lead to weight loss because it's restricting. So I think, and without jumping around too much, I think that there's restrictive. So there's going to be a calorie deficit amount, there's going to be a calorie maintenance amount, and there's also going to be a caloric surplus amount that you can consume to get your body to do one of three things: lose weight, maintain weight, or gain weight. And again, we know that we can do this with good calories or bad calories. And when we say good or bad, it's more of is it something my body can use? So if Coach Aaron and I go on a complete fast food processed high calorie, surplus, we're both going to gain weight, but it's not the bulking that Coach Aaron's talking about wanting to do. Right? He wants to get bulked up. He's having good quality carbohydrates, and that's important. His body can use that to bulk. So to regress back into where I was at with these clients, putting a window on them gave them an opportunity to keep eating whatever they were eating. Didn't ask them to change anything yet, but just gave them a window to do it in. So they had less time to munch and snack, and late at night when they were probably having all this really high, poor processed food choices, it was no longer an option. So they felt like they were attaining some success, and they weren't having to change too much out of the gate. So for those of you listening, if you're just getting started and you have a really poor nutrition, format, and you're eating poor food as far as value to the body, intermittent fasting can be a great start, especially on the weight loss side, because it puts a restriction of time on there. But we know with anything, restricting too much too soon can lead to, just complete rebellion, right? If I said, Coach Aaron, don't think of the color red, you can think of any other color, but the color red, which color comes to mind right away?
Red.
It's going to be red. Freaking right. It's going to be red. So if I tell you you can't have this food or that food or whatever. So what intermittent fasting does is it says we're going to put you in a window instead, just a time. And what are the protocols that you've seen, Coach? Is there 16 hours, 8 hours? Like what's an effective have you seen out there for time on intermittent fasting?
Yeah, so usually like an 8 hour feeding window is pretty typical. Um, excuse me. I really like, and there's been a lot of research that shows that even a 12-hour intermittent fasting window, which isn't a lot, that's like stop eating at 8 p.m. and you can have breakfast by 8 a.m. But even that
Mhm.
8 hours of fasting has really shown to have a lot of the benefits of like autophagy, where the cells can go in and repair themselves, a lot of the benefits that you get with fasting. So that's generally what I try to stick to when I am doing some intermittent protocol now, is just 12 hours even. Then you're getting
12
some of the
hours.
benefits, but then you can still, still maintain like a maintenance or a surplus on the calories type thing too.
Nice. That's important to make sure that we know. So you do a 12-hour, like where you have 12 hours to eat. That's your window of eating opportunity, right? And then
Right.
another 12 hours off. So in your 24-hour clock, it's 12 by 12.
Yep, yep.
Right? So what I used on these two clients was a 16 to 8. So they had an 8-hour eating and a 16-hour without eating. And to some people, that sounded scary, like 16 hours without eating. But I was like, well, you're going to sleep 8 of that. Sleep is really important. So I want you to sleep 8, which means you only have to really do 4 before bed that you don't eat and 4 in the morning when you don't eat, like 4 hours, right? So it's before when you get up, the first 4 hours, there'd be no eating. And then before bed, 4 hours. You can split it however you want. But the idea is that that would be 16 hours, the 4 before bed, the 8 hours of sleeping, and the 4 in the morning, 4 hours when you first wake up. And now you've got 8 hours through the day, which is most people's normal work day is 8 hours, right? So kind of structure that and, bring whatever you need. So they followed that protocol for the first while, and the weight was coming off like crazy because they had some good guidelines to follow. So does intermittent fasting work for the weight loss side? Yeah, I believe it really does, but I believe it really came down more so to the caloric deficit that we kept them in. They were eating less of the processed food and they were hitting the caloric deficit as needed. Now, there's also caloric maintenance, which is going to do better for your metabolism, actually build it up. And if you want to get a stronger, healthier metabolism, I believe that reverse dieting is the better way to go. But that's a whole other episode. Reverse diet is an amazing process a lot of people need because I think people have feared food for so long. We've been misled to believe that fats were bad for us and protein. I mean, protein is deficient in almost every client who's ever come to me. And that's male, female, whatever. It has been deficient, and people don't realize the value of protein. It's just the most important it's the holy grail in my opinion of it all. Protein is key. So we got to get these types of things in check. And guys out there who need help with this, reach out. We're here to help you. Coach Aaron and I, with all of our experience, we genuinely want to see you succeed. And so intermittent fasting for this client couple I was working with was a great starter for us. And both of them have lost in the journey. By the end of it, they had lost, she ended up losing 120 pounds in our
Nice.
first year together. And he lost very close to it. He started with about 80 pounds in that first 8 months. And then I think he finished in around 90 pounds of weight loss by the end of it. Now, again, we talk about weight loss because that's the part that gets glorified when someone's transforming, from obese down to healthy, right? But at the same time, during that process, the amount of muscle building wasn't optimal. It wasn't where we ever went into the maintenance calories or even surplus calories. That's where I believe the muscle building really, thrives. So if you want to get to that point where guys out there listening, you want to start to get that lean muscle mass on, I think caloric maintenance and caloric surplus are two areas you really want to get to. And it's not always easy to do that with an intermittent fasting approach because the meal size would have to be so big that digestion might become a bigger obstacle. Right. So if I say, Coach Aaron, we need to get you to 4,000 calories in order to get you to your let's say your surplus calories. Can you do that in 2 meals? Each of those meals is going to need to be 2,000 calories. Like, dude, I don't know if I
Yeah.
could digest that. Right. So
Yeah.
we say, well, okay, I'm going to give you a window of say 8 hours. Do you think you could do it? You're like, shit, I might still have a hard time pulling that off. We move his window to 12 hours and maybe then he can get it in multiple shots. But it's just one of those things. We could still succeed as long as we keep the caloric surplus, but we still have to, if we're going to use the window approach, Coach Aaron might need a larger window to do that. And he would still chalk that up under intermittent fasting, which is still a protocol. So I think it's just another modality, whether it leads to good habits for you or really restrictive bad habits is something I think you need to really, monitor for yourself. So it's one of those situations where we're going to say it depends, right? Whether it works perfectly for you, it depends. Everybody's a little different. We've seen success from it, but I really believe that we're talking caloric surplus, caloric deficit, or caloric maintenance as far as what the outcome result is. So anything you want to add to that, Coach, on the intermittent fasting?
Yeah, I think it's a great, way to go about it for a lot of people that need to set some structure and some rules for themselves. They just need to be like they're that type of person that likes a snack at nighttime, and they just need to give themselves a cutoff and say, okay, 8 p.m. is no mas. I'm not eating after this. Like that type of person that needs that structure, it's really good for. And then, just go back to the original question of putting on some muscle and stuff. Like you could still follow an intermittent fasting protocol, but maybe I would lean more towards like the 12-hour, like I was saying, so you could get a meal in at like hypothetically 8 a.m., noon. So that's a 4 hour difference. So you're getting two meals there, and then 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. So that way you're getting a meal every 4 hours. That gives you a chance to get in four meals. And then you can probably get in that more of a maintenance surplus calorie range and still be somewhat within an intermittent fasting protocol of some sort.
That's good. I like the breakdown there. You give some times. Did that work out to 4 meals or 5 meals that you were talking in that window,
Yeah,
Coach?
four meals. So you got 8 a.m. and then 12 noon and then 4 p.m. and then 8 p.m. So that's a good 12-hour window, and that's giving you a good four solid meals in there.
Okay, cool. So I'm just doing a calculation on the side here real quick. Let's just assume, okay, and we're just assuming based on body size, based on workout, that you're trying to consume, say, 3,000 calories for the day. I think that's pretty reasonable, right? And then we divide that by four. Each of the meals, if we're dividing by four, is going to be about 750 calories, just to give us an idea, meal for meal, right? To reach the caloric of 3,000. So, like Coach is saying, if that works for you in 4 meals, you follow those windows and you can keep a meal size of about 750 calories using good fats. As we know, fats have 9 calories per gram, so it can really help you get your caloric allotment up there. That's a good way to look at it. So that's on 4 meals. If you divide it into 5 meals, the number goes down per meal to about 600 calories. So the more meals you eat, the easier it is to attain the number you're shooting for. But like we talked about, it's however you do it. It depends on the individual. Some people can get 4 meals, some people can get five, some people can only get 2 meals. That's where it gets difficult because those meal sizes are going to have to be 1,500 calories a piece to get to 3,000 calories, right? So can it be done? Yes. And is it comfortable to do? Maybe for some people, but Coach Aaron's suggesting at least four good meals there. And I like the 4 to 5 meal approach as well, which is good. So, and again, the intermittent fasting brain fog part we talked about is a bonus. So if you want to be sharp and you want to be, not crashing out there on those highs and lows of your blood insulin levels, then intermittent fasting can have some serious benefit for that reason as well. Very cool, man. I like that. So a
Yeah.
great start to the show today. I like it.
Yeah,
And the
buddy.
next question gets into our world that we like to call the MMA, boxing, and martial arts world. We had a question come in and it says, "What's the best way to prepare to get in shape if I wanted to start jiu-jitsu? I'm over 50 years old and I don't want to get into one of these gyms with these young guys and get my butt whooped," right? So the framing was, I'm a little bit embarrassed to get in there. What could I do? What would be the best way to get in shape and start jiu-jitsu if I don't want to get hurt and I don't want to get embarrassed in a gym situation? I'm a little uncomfortable there. So, Coach Aaron, let's take you and bring the guest here, or bring our Billy into the gym. What is that first? How does it look? Do we start at home? Do we take him to the dojo? Where should he begin?
Yeah, depending on what their level of fitness is to start off with, obviously. Like if you're really, just deconditioned out of, you don't have much physical strength at the moment, you're haven't been stretching, you're a little bit bound up and stuff, I would definitely start by just starting off with a general fitness program to get the body moving and grooving again. Do some mobility, create a little more range of motion in the joints because you're going to be getting twisted in pretzels and arm bars and choke holds and all sorts of stuff. You want to make sure that your body's a little bit, loose and pliable first, and can just be able to be resilient when you start having to push your body to that challenging levels and stuff. So a good physical conditioning program. Um, I like my Fight Fit strength and conditioning program because it kind of simulates the way that you would train if you were in a fight scenario. It's got like 3 5-minute rounds, just like an MMA fight. So it's got a good balance between some like cardiovascular, kickboxing, Thai boxing, conditioning stuff with some calisthenic body weight, or you can even add other exercise bands and weights in there and stuff and add to the repertoire. But it's a good general way to get a quick fix of fitness in there in just 15 minutes and start developing that physical conditioning that you need to be in preparation for getting back onto the mat or into the cage or whatever it may be. So I would start with something like that for sure, some type of mobility routine. um, and then also, I mean, you could, if you're already in pretty decent condition, just jump right on the mats, if you're not way out of shape, and just start drilling at first. You don't have to do the excuse me, the live rolling and go in there with the young guys and get choked out and stuff. Just do the technical aspect of things, right? and just work on the fight simulation drills and all the sweeps and just the drills basically without getting your hands dirty and getting beat up in the process.
I'm 100% in agreeing. 100%. The first thing you mentioned was the fight fit. And I saw this inside the forum for the first time because I had a chance to actually do one with you. I'd never done it before. And I've never ever trained in MMA. Most of the viewers who are watching know that my background has been boxing, amateur boxing, Olympic style. And so MMA for me is something that's always intrigued me, but I've never actually trained in it. So with Coach Aaron, I had a chance to do this on the Fight Fit workout inside the Ultimate Man Forum. And the workout, and I believe, is it Branham or Branham?
Branham,
One of our
yeah,
clients.
yeah, Branham.
Yeah,
Buffed
yeah.
with Branham is a whole course in the Ultimate Man Forum. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And I think he was kind of one of the demos that I saw doing it the first time. And I thought, hey, that's a pretty badass workout. And I saw how the 5 minute round, broke down. And anyway, it was an at-home application. So I thought, this is super cool, man. You kind of brought the gym to me, right? Which made it very convenient. And all I had to do was press play, watch along, and the coaching's there. So dudes who are considering, on the fence about jumping in the forum, that in itself right there, you get Coach Aaron on live, or sorry, not live, but he's on the video recording with you, guiding you through. He is the demo in there. I mean, it's just fantastic. And it teaches you how to kind of bring your heart rate intensity up, how to recover. There's some strength training in it. And then there's some conditioning aspects. Like it literally looks like a fight. And I mean, you're going through all the aspects. And I know because I've been in the fight world and I've had almost 100 fights myself. So I know the high intensities and the, having to pace yourself properly and all that. And so I felt all of that push me hard. And I was like, at the end of that first round, I was like, dude, I'm out of shape. I could feel like this is making it happen. Now, again, it was because my competitive nature was I'm going all out, right? And you don't have to. You can monitor it and adjust it to your level. So don't want to scare the guys out there who are like, I'm too out of shape to do that. That sounds intense. It's the structure that matters. And then you apply your level of intensity as you get better. So I love the fight fit, man. That was a very good way to do it from home. And then I think about walking into a gym for the first time. Totally, even at my level today, I would still be intimidated walking into an MMA gym because I'm brand new in that aspect. I could walk in there and coach people on the boxing and the striking. I mean, I'd be more than comfortable to do that. But if I had to get in and learn how to do rolling around and stuff, I'd be, what they call fish out of water, right? I'm lost. I'd be embarrassed to even try. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, right? So when guys get into that aspect, having to walk into a gym, we can understand your level of comfort or discomfort in this case. So Coach Aaron's advice is the same as what I would recommend. Obviously make sure you have coaching and guidance. Obviously, if you have to hire a specific coach within that gym, don't just wander around aimlessly. I mean, most coaches are provided in a gym, I believe, but in case you need that extra help, get that extra help. But most importantly, what he said, and I agree with, is the foundational basics. Learn what the basic level is. You're going to see guys rolling around inside octagons. You're going to see, and again, if it's boxing, people sparring, applying what they've learned, and they're literally in there with headgears on and they're fighting, right? Like practice fighting. And that you see that and you go, oh my God, that's intimidating. That's not where you're going to begin. Take the time to go and learn the basics. Learn where your footwork is supposed to be placed. Where do you put your feet to stand properly? Let's start there. You got to be on the ground. Like go to the basics, learn the fundamentals, and I always drill that as the start. And again, I think that everything that ever becomes great always comes back to the foundation. It's someone with a good, solid foundation is going to be able to build upon that. But if you don't have foundation, everything crumbles. Guys who come in and want to learn the fanciest combination right out of the gate don't have the foundation to kind of come back to when that combination fails. Your foundational is missing. So I always say you got to get the footwork down first. Then you got to start building upon that. Striking is one of the last things we actually do in boxing. And again, if it's done any other way, I believe it's done too soon and it rushes people into ultimately, failure because they're not going to have that foundation to come back on. And again, we're going to talk later about some of our favorite fighters, but I'm going to throw the name out there real quick is Bernard Hopkins. If you don't know who that is, look that up. And again, I'm not saying he's absolutely my favorite fighter, but one thing that he proved was I think around 46 or 47 years old. I mean, he was up there. He literally went back and won the world title in boxing. I mean, unbelievable. And
Wow.
all he did, and I think we probably might see this in some of the talk. I'm going to guess about Randy Couture as well. There's something very, very consistent about these guys. They were at what they'd call far too old for the sport, but what they stuck to was the foundation. And Bernard Hopkins went in there and won the world title back on what we call the 1-2 combination, the basics. He literally had his feet in the right spots and he threw the two punches, the jab and the follow up, the lead and the backhand. And so he wins a fight at this level based on his age, based on his wisdom and his experience and his foundational fundamental. So you want to be a world champion in what you're doing, learn the basics now, get comfortable, get confident on those foundations. Coach Aaron, you said it right, man. I believe that that's where the confidence will build. And then a guy will obviously learn more and feel more comfortable as he builds on top of that. But it all starts with those basics, man.
Yeah, for
Anything to add to
sure.
that?
Yeah, I would also add just that you gotta apply some like functional fitness principles in your training methodology to be able to get back into like jujitsu shape or fighting shape or stuff too. So, you don't want to just go into the gym and do a traditional strength training bodybuilding program. You want to start adding in some more functional fitness stuff. So that's one of the reasons that the Fight Fit is so good too, because we're doing, we'll throw in some sprawls and some kickouts and some like functional moves that you would actually be applicable in like a fight scenario. So you're training the muscles in a realistic way. So there's that. And like you mentioned, there's, I've got guys like Brandon, who's like one of my VIP clients, that we've got a whole course in the Ultimate Man Forum of just, him doing his Fight Fit training programs. So you can just follow along and try to keep up with Brandon, which is really good. And if you're just
Mm-hmm.
getting started, you can just modify the exercises or even just push pause and take a little bit longer break. It's a 1 minute break between each of the 5 minute rounds, but you could just push pause, wait till you're ready, and then get back at it for beginners too. And then last thing I would just add is like, I think you mentioned this too, like if you want to go back into a gym and start training again, but you don't want to get hurt, maybe just hire a personal trainer in there that's willing to do some one-on-ones with you. And then you could do the drills and stuff, and you know that they're just not going to beat the tar out of you, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Build that foundation. And yeah, it's great. And like you said, pushing pause. In real life, we can't do that, right? Like you can't push pause, but in the video format, online training, you get a chance to do that. And that's a very helpful part because I notice too, even when I'm doing sometimes demonstrations and work and stuff, your heart rate gets up and you're out of control. You can feel it. Your next set's going to suffer massively if you don't rest properly. And so sometimes it's actually far more beneficial to press pause, take the break, recover, and then come back at it with that fresh approach. Because yes, there's something to be said for that continuous exhaustion if that's what you're training towards, but most people aren't. They're not training for any specific sport. They're not training to really get that cardio to that height. And in real life, you're not usually asked to get to that expenditure level. Real life is asking mostly for strength and performance. Like in real life, you're going to go shovel your driveway or cut your grass. You're going to carry your groceries from the car to the house. That's strength and it's in short duration. So you want to get stronger. That's going to be a better place to put your focus, in my opinion. So like Coach was saying, functional movement becomes such a gold mine of where you should begin. But then also take the breaks to make sure that the next load you carry is just as good. It's a strong signal. And if you're too tired to do that, you're only going to diminish your workout, and then diminishing returns are not what we're training for. So let's keep you rested. And if you need to press pause, press pause. So why don't we press pause right now and remind you to like and subscribe to our channel and have a drink with us. Coach Aaron's here. We got our drinks for today. Coach, cheers to the show. Cheers to another great start to the year and episode part 2 here of our Q&As.
Cheers. Helping all our
Cheers,
Billies
boys.
get buffed and badass.
I love it. Stay hydrated out there, gentlemen. All right. Good stuff. So we've got another question here we're going to go towards now. And it has to do with drinking, which is a good time to obviously have our drink. So this one here is more in regards to alcohol. So when someone writes in, they said, are there any suggestions for helping me cut back on my drinking? And again, I'm believing that to be alcohol is the way it's, because that's the only part of the question we got. So if someone was into drinking alcohol and they're finding it to be excessive to the point where maybe it's become a weight loss issue. Obviously, they're trying to lose weight, but they can't. They're noticing the alcohol is probably one of those things that's causing them some problems. Some people use alcohol for other reasons, and some people find that it calms them or whatever it is. But I find a lot of times that the breath work is really more of what you're getting calmed by. It relaxes you. You take time to slow down and breathe. But someone who's been drinking too much and has found it to be a problem and wants to cut back, what advice would you give them, Coach?
First off, you got to figure out like what is your trigger for wanting to drink, and for most people, it's just wanting to check out and kind of, just get a little relief from their stress type thing. That's what it was for me, big time. Just I was stressed out, and I just needed to like get a head change. It was like that was my thing. I wanted a head change. I just wanted to get out of my current state of stress. So find out what is triggering you to be in that stressful state, and how you can kind of like just diminish some of those stressful situations in your life for one. Um, and then I've got a client right now that just recently cut back. He was drinking like a 12 pack every night, and now he's down to like, the other night he had like three or four, and then when he went one night without any drink. So it's just some people can quit cold turkey, and if you can do that, that's great. Some people need to wean off. So figure out what method is going to work best for you, I think. But if you're doing the wean off approach, you keep track of what you're doing. I have this tracker that I keep track of stuff on for myself and my clients. And write down that you had, 6 drinks tonight, and then set a target for yourself to just have 5 drinks or 4 drinks the night after that, and just gradually start to diminish the alcohol and start to increase some of the more beneficial things in your life. Again, I like to say flip your focus to fitness to be free. So that was one of the things that helped for me, was just to really get back into my fitness, because you can't simultaneously build muscle and feel energetic and run a business and do all these things that you want to do if you have some goals in life, if you're just polluting yourself with these freaking toxins all the time. So yeah, flip your focus to fitness, or find something that you're passionate about that you're going to be um, more excited about than trying to just numb the pain from the stress. A couple other things I would say is, you need to really get your nutrition on point. A lot of people are, maybe deficient in some simple things like B vitamins. Drinking too much, you can be low in B vitamins. If you're not high enough in B vitamins, that could lead to some symptoms of depression. And then you're drinking because you're depressed, but then that drinking is causing further depression because you're diminishing the micronutrients that you need to alleviate the depression. So it's like this vicious freaking cycle, and you're drinking because you're exhausted when you get home from work, but you're exhausted probably because you didn't get sleep real good the night before because you were drinking, and you were dehydrated, and dehydration is probably one of the main causes of, low energy levels. So you just got to realize that it's not doing you any freaking good, and start to make some changes, and start looking for some natural alternatives to get that head change or to relieve your stress, whether that's, there's a lot of herbs you can take, like kava kava or some chamomile in the evening to help you chill out a little bit. CBD, stuff like that, that's gonna, give you a little bit of a calming effect, but not get you all high and messed up the next day.
Hmm. Wow. I'm just looking at all that information going, you just unpacked an entire course in literally a moment there. You talked about sleep, you talked about vitamin deficiency, you talked about hydration and dehydration. Yeah, I mean, you just literally covered the gauntlet. Guys out there listening, this is gold. Make sure you got your notebooks out, you're taking some notes, and then ask questions, of course. If you're in our forum, ask questions because we can dive deeper into these topics. Aaron just gave about 5 different, formulas that can also be broken down further into how it's going to help you cut back on the drinking. Man, that was great. Appreciate that, brother. Here's a thought that I wanted to kind of place. A lot of people today are finding that these challenges are beneficial. Like you'll hear, things out there like, hey, 10-day challenge to get fit. And in that 10 days, they're practicing some habits, right? In 10 days. Then there's like 21 days to get the best abs you've ever had. And in that 21 days, they're teaching you some habits to try to get there. We all know beyond a shadow of a doubt, we're not going to get 6-pack abs in 21 days. We're not going to get in the most muscular shape we ever, could ever be in 21 days or 6 days or whatever the challenge is. But the reason the challenge is there is to start the journey. It's to get the wheels in motion. It's to get you in there. So if we offer a challenge, we're doing the same thing. We're trying to get your wheels in motion so that you can start to get towards where you want to be. So coach, let me frame it this way. Would it be beneficial for someone to do, let's just say, a 14-day alcohol-free challenge where it's just the habit of not having alcohol in the house, not having it around, not having it as an option for the next 14 days. And if I can succeed, then maybe I'll extend it and I'm seeing benefits. Maybe I measure myself, on the weight scale and the body fat analysis before I start this challenge. And then I go through my, 7 days, 21 days. And if I'm seeing positive feedback, I'm doing all the right things. I'm trying to eat healthier. I'm exercising a little bit and I'm not drinking, which is my main challenge. Then would that be a beneficial approach? Is that too cold turkey? Should they shorten that? Again, we think SMART goal, specific, measurable, attainable. Should they shorten the goal to 7 day challenge, no alcohol? You've been there before. And I think you went cold turkey. I believe you said you did. It was all or nothing because you couldn't dabble anywhere in between. What type of challenge do you think you could frame that would be reasonable if you had to? Or is that even a great option?
I like it because, for one, I mean, just take the 14-day challenge. You're going to see a lot of progress in 14 days, man. You're going to just feel a huge difference when you clear the toxins out of your system, you start rehydrating, you're focused on your food and stuff. You're going to feel a lot better. And when 14 days comes around, you're going to be like, oh man, I don't miss that shit at all, for one. And then for another thing, 14 days is just it's a small time frame. It's like we were talking about this in workouts the other day on one of our other podcasts. It's like if you can't commit to an hour, make it a 7 minute super seven workout or a 15-minute workout like we both have.
Mhm.
That mentally makes it a lot easier because you're like, okay, I can work out for 15 minutes or I can quit booze for 7 or 14 days. Like no matter what, I can tough out 14 days and just suck it up. So suck it up for 14 days. You're going to feel a whole of a lot better. And you mentally, it's something that you can grasp because if 14 days comes around and you quit and then you decide you want to start drinking again, no one's going to stop you from drinking again. It's up to you. But I
Mhm.
guarantee you're probably not going to want to.
Right. Holy shit. That's fantastic. I only posed the question because I've seen the habit, change, but I didn't know that it would be that impactful in 14 days. But from your experience, definitely will have benefit.
Oh, yeah.
Nice. Nice. Hey, that's great. We might have just put out there the 14-day challenge to all of our listeners. The Ultimate Man podcast. You want to fix your alcohol consumption? Take the 14-day no alcohol challenge. Now, if they keep alcohol around, being someone who maybe, this question coming from someone who probably consumes too much alcohol, they're not even your moderate drinker. I mean, they're seeing it as it's holding me back. It's my obstacle. Would it be of any benefit for them to at least put it in a cupboard far away? Or is that still knowing it's there? Does it have to be removed from the environment completely? What do you think, coach? What's the best way to succeed?
I think definitely get it out of the environment completely. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I don't even like it being in the house,
Mhm.
at least initially, once you get over the hump and then you just decide, you make the decision that, I'm no longer a drinker, then you can, have it in the house. If your significant other has it or something, they still like to partake, then that's fine. So, but initially I'd say just get it out of the environment until you get over that hump for sure.
Beautiful advice. And here's another thing. I'm going to play the role of this client. I come home, I'm at the end of this long, hard work day, and I'm so used to sitting down and cracking that beer open. All right. And so now, what do I, because you talked about replacing it, right? I'm going to sit down and I'm ready to crack open that beer. I've had this long, hard day. Do I get myself a cup of tea ready to go? Or what's the solution, right? Because some guys are going to go, screw that. I'm not going to sit down and sip at a chamomile tea, bro. What's my, how am I going to get through this? Because I'm going to be jonesing for that beer, right? What's the solution there? What can I replace it with?
Yeah, so if you don't like sipping this chamomile tea, I'm telling you, the chamomile tea is a game changer, bro. Don't be all try to be tough and stuff and say can't do the chamomile tea. You ain't that tough. I'm just kidding. Um, I would say suck it up and try the chamomile tea, or there's 100 other options out there as too. As like I said, there's other supplements that'll help you chill out, whether it's some like valerian root or other stuff too that just kind
Mhm.
of takes the edge off a little bit. Find one of those you want to try out, some CBDs or something.
Good,
At least
good.
at least you've replaced it with something that's along the lines of being more beneficial. That's still giving you the perception of okay, it's going to give me a little bit of a head change. It's going to take the edge off a little bit. And then I really, would like to do something like, I'd sit in a hot tub or, go in
Hmm.
a hot bath or something like that, just to kind of like reset for the day. So if you're getting off work and you're stressed out and you're used to grabbing the beer, have your little, whatever it is, the herbs you decided partake in, have a hot bath or something like that. And then, we talked about this last time in one of our mindset podcasts. Imagine you got to do this for yourself. It's like a personal thing. Like I could tell you what I would do, but you got to do this for yourself and experiment. Imagine your super self. Okay. Put your super self into the situation. Okay. How would your super self feel, think, and act, and then do the exact? That's kind of like our mindset formula, right? So imagine that, take yourself out of your current shoes and put yourself in the super self version of you. You just quit drinking. You made the decision to stop. What does that new super self version of you do? Okay. And just allow your imagination to come up with some alternatives. A lot of times people just don't even give themselves an alternative option. They're just like, this is what I do. And they're in the habit and they just keep repeating it. Give yourself a freaking option. Okay. For me, it was like, I could just chill out if I wanted. One thing I like to do that I could just do for hours is watch UFC fights. So I'll just put on a UFC fight and watch that for an hour or two. It helps me de-stress. I'm doing something that's fun. It kind of takes my mind off wanting to drink. And so find out what that thing is for you and give yourself a super self alternative.
You read my mind. I was literally thinking the exact same thing, man.
Nice.
I was literally thinking, okay, so I get home, I got this vision of myself, and I've got this story I've told myself, first of all, like I worked hard. Whether you did or didn't, that's your own personal perception, right? Your boss, your coworkers might not say you worked that hard at all, but you believe you did. So you deserve a treat or a reward. And that reward or that treat is that beer and in your mind, right? So you get down, you sit down, you have that drink, and it calms you. Now it changes your state. Go all the way back to what Coach Aaron said at the beginning. You're doing this for state change. That's the reason you're doing it. At the end of the day, you're trying to change your state. You're trying to get out of that world and into a different world, from work world to relaxing world. But relaxing world comes in the way of doing something you enjoy. So change your state by physically doing something you enjoy. Watch the UFC fights? Great. Maybe you want to go out and just sit in the pool if you got a pool. Or maybe you want to go to the local community center and just see some buddies or hang out. Like, I don't know what your thing is, and you know it better than we do. So we're not here to tell you what to do. It's do something that you are in alignment with enjoying instead of just sitting there and mindlessly trying to disconnect. I think a lot of people look for that escape and that mindlessness, and they want to just get away from the world. But there's better ways to get away. Like I like to play guitar. I'll grab my guitar and just strum a few chords, and have some fun. Maybe sing a little bit, write a song, whatever. You don't want to hear that on the podcast, but I'm telling you, at least you could try it if you like it, right?
No, we do. We want to hear it sometime. You gotta do a little jingle for us sometime, brother.
That's
You're
kind of
awesome.
cool idea, actually. Create a jingle for the show, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's something I like to do, right? And it puts me in a positive state. And I could do that at the end of a long, stressful day. And I'll tell you also, music is a great healer. We've talked about it on the show. Music can be a motivator for sure. We talked about the heavy metal mindset, get into that gym workout and pump it. But sometimes just relaxing music can also send you there. Ever notice you go to a spa? Are they playing heavy metal? Absolutely not, right? A spa, tranquility, they're playing the music of nature and they're like, it's so calming, right? That is the same chemical releases that you might get from having your beer, right? You're trying to create a different state in your brain, and your brain's going to react and send a message to your body that you're now relaxed. So breath work is, in my opinion, one of the best ways to do it. If you slow down and take some breaths in, and if you ever heard of box breathing before, holding your breath for a set amount of time, whether it be 4 or 5 seconds, and then breathing out slowly for 4 or 5 seconds and breathing in, and you're working your way around this little box frame, you can really slow your heart rate, calm your body, and de-stress, putting you in a completely different state. Now, do something you love while you're in that state. You can make a whole new connection. And all the while you're keeping yourself busy and occupied doing something you enjoy, you don't need the beer, right? You could be sipping on water. You don't even care because that's not really what you're focused on. You're focused on enjoying something else and changing your state. And I can't remember the last time someone, really doing something they loved was like stopping and going, I need to go have a beer. Like you're busy doing that thing. So even guys who play in beer leagues. I mean, you've heard of these baseball beer leagues, right? And they purposely go, they play the game. They don't play and drink. They like, I mean, they like during the game, they go all together later and have a few drinks as a reward celebration, whatever. And then they go play, but they're not playing and drinking on the bench at the same time, at least not that I know of, right? Because that would only impair your performance in doing something you really enjoy. Again, there's going to be guys watching the podcast going, dude, I play drunk all the time. You're probably not the
Totally.
best player.
Totally.
You're probably not the best player on the field that you could be. And remember, we talked about
Yeah.
super self. Get out there and really want to be the best version of you. Show everybody what you got. Show yourself what you got. And I think then, you'll be able to enjoy it a lot more. And you won't feel the need for the beer. So I love that you went to super self, man. I was going there in my head before, and I was like, you just literally read my mind, bro. So if anyone
Nice.
hasn't seen the last episode where we talked about super self, the formula, you're going to go back and watch that episode as well.
Yeah.
That's perfect, man. And so that's all on the topic of how to reduce alcohol consumption. And anything you want to add to that, Coach? As we talked about the 14-day challenge, we talked about replacing the habit with something really positive. Anything else we should add to that?
I think that was good. Yeah, I think we covered a
Okay,
lot right there. And then I think
nice.
I would just reiterate that, like you said, music's a good. That's one of the things that I personally do a lot too. Is just put on some real chill music. Like you look up binaural beats or something. There's these actual rhythms and music and stuff that you can get that'll actually calm your brain waves down. And maybe you don't know what your super self would do other than drinking at the moment. So maybe you need to figure that out. So just give yourself a pause, put on some binaural beats or some relaxing music, and just instead of coming home and drinking right away and making that your instinctual reaction, listen to some music, give yourself a little 20-minute little power nap and just check out, get a little head change with that first. And then maybe some inspiration will come to you as what you should do next.
Good. I love that. And one of the questions we're going to get into later is about our favorite fighters and role models, in the sport and stuff. But I also sometimes I'll think about that. You've heard these like, what would so and so do if you can't super self yourself, right?
Yeah.
You're like, because a lot of guys out there, your negative self talk's killing you, right? You're talking to yourself and saying, I'm a loser. This is what I do, man. I'm not meant for anything. So you go home, you have a beer because that's in alignment with your super self. That's the super self you see for yourself, which is absolute bullshit, by the way. But that's the framework you've come up with. So we're not going to discredit it. So then put yourself in a different super self. What would so and so do? Now you look at Coach Aaron, look at myself, and say, what would Coach do? Right? I'm going to say at this point, these guys are motivating me. I'm not where they are, but I'd like to be. I want to try to get there. I want to try to get further than them. I'd like to be a guest on The Ultimate Man one day and talk about my transformation. If that can motivate you, then put yourself in our position. Would we get home? And if we were standing right beside you, would we knock that beer out of your hand and say, silly bastard, what are you doing? Right? You know what I mean? Don't do that. That's not in alignment with who you want to be. Who do you want to be? And you say, well, you're right. I don't want to be this guy. Screw that. What are we going to do? Let's come up with something else. Let's go do something. Let's go hit the pads. Let's go, let's go and be active. Let's go change our state in some other way. And if you could get up off that couch and just take that time to reframe it in the super self of maybe not you, but who you're going to become or who someone else already is, it's going to help huge, man. You got to stop telling yourself the bullshit story, though, that you got to stay where you are because that's the version of you that you're living with. I've seen it from even some of my best friends, man. They'd come home and crack beers like that and go through a half a case a night. Maybe even more, and you just watch them go through it, and they're struggling financially, but they're dumping all their money back into the beer. And again, I'm speaking from personal experience, not mine, but a very close friend. And I watched them struggle, man. And, it's sad to watch. And I should have stepped up and been a better role model at that time. I wasn't intervening, and some people need intervention. But let us be that intervention right now. If you're listening to this podcast, we're stepping in right now. We're knocking the beer out of your hand. And we're saying, knock it off, right? Stop.
Yep.
It's time to get serious. What do you think, Coach? You ready to give some tough love out there?
That's right. Suck it up, buttercups.
The
Yeah.
next question, here we go. The next question is about cravings. Now, this is just like alcohol as a drug, but we're talking about food as a drug here. My cravings are out of control. What can I do to help that? So now we've got a person who's going into the food as their drug. Now, again, this might tie very closely into what we just told you. But Coach Aaron, is there anything you'd add in the form of food if someone says my cravings are out of control? Maybe I'm eating emotionally, or what's causing the problem here, and why are you craving it so much? Coach, dive into that a little bit. Give us some feedback. What do you think?
Such a multifaceted topic right there. I mean, cravings could come from so many factors. It could be like an emotional craving, it could be a physiological craving. So I think you need to determine, what kind of a craving is it? Is it like you could be like deficient in certain nutrients, and like your body's craving something, but you don't even know what you're craving. You're just craving something. So you're reaching for the potato chips because you're low in magnesium or vitamin D or zinc or some of the crucial minerals and vitamins that people are deficient in. You could be, lacking just hydration and be craving some water, but you're reaching for food instead of water. Like try having some water first. You could be craving for some more emotional connection in your life and some more feeling of growth and contribution and doing something, that you feel positive about, but you're reaching for food instead. So like there's so many aspects to it. You just got to figure out what do you really want? What is your body really craving? Try really supplementing your diet and getting your diet on point first and your hydration on point first, and then start looking into your personal life and see, is it more of like a sociological emotional craving of like you just want to have closer relationships with people, like those type of things too. So yeah, it could be so
Again, yeah.
multifaceted.
Nice. Again, you cover so many, again, you're building courses in these answers, man. There's so many aspects of this game. And when you talked about deficiencies, that's a whole topic in itself. And one of the best ways I find in experience to overcome the deficiency part is to focus on whole foods, like actual vitamin enriched, whole natural food. That's such a great solution. And a lot of people are eating too much processed food, which it contains no value. There's no vitamin. And so it's very easy to become deficient, even if you're eating, but you're eating food that doesn't have those nutrients in it. It just makes sense, right? If I give you a bag and I say you want to get rich, I'm going to give you a bag full of sand. It doesn't have any money in it. You're not going to get any value from that. But I give you a bag full of money, you're like, okay, now I'm literally rich. But if I put a dollar sign on the outside of the bag and give it to you and it's full of sand, you're still not rich. You got this bag full and it says money on the outside. Well, so does a box of something that says food on the outside, but there's no actual food inside of it. You know what I mean? It's full of sand. Or in this case, in my analogy, it's full of emptiness, right? And so you got whole food, which is full of vitamin and mineral. It's really naturally going to nourish your body. I talked to a client the other day about trying to grow a flower in a garden. And I said, your soil is literally your gut health. If you want to grow a flower inside of a garden, what would you put in the soil? Good quality nutrients, or would you dump a bunch of, poison in the soil and expect a flower to grow? You want muscle to grow? You want good health to grow? You want mindset to grow? You want anything to grow? You need to nurture the soil. That starts with all of those micronutrients and the macronutrients. You got to get the soil right if you want to grow anything positive. So you can guarantee right now, if you're sitting here listening to this, you're depressed, you're suffering from anxiety, depression, and you're suffering from so many of these diagnosed indeficiencies and everything. They're almost always coming back to poor gut health. Almost always. Okay, we're not going to discredit someone who's got a very severe real life thing going on, but most of the time they're not. They're gut health related. So Coach went right at it with the deficiency of vitamin. Start with whole foods, and now you're going to crave less because you're actually more satiated. You're more full from real nutrients your body needed. You're no longer in a deficit. And guess what? A garden full of really good soil is going to grow some beautiful stuff. You want to see those muscles start popping and that body start looking good and that mind start shining and, your skin complexion, all of it. You got to start with those raw materials, right? Those nutrients that your body needs. So, yeah, we're going to get real with you today. It's time to get
Yeah.
tough. All right.
Yeah.
What do you think, Coach?
Yeah, and then even on Whole Foods, like I said, that's a great start getting Whole Foods. But even in our Whole Foods diet now, even a lot of those are missing, nutrients and stuff, and not growing in the proper soil and stuff. So even if you're eating, vegetables and all that meats and stuff, you still could be deficient in some stuff. So one of the things that I just did that I'm really excited about getting my results back is I did this real comprehensive lab work blood analysis from like this company called Inside Tracker that Huberman is a real big proponent of. Have you probably seen him
Yeah.
plug the
Yeah.
Inside Tracker? So I just forked out like $700 for this really comprehensive analysis and a DNA protocol and stuff. So it can tell me, even though I eat pretty damn healthy compared to the average Joe, if I'm missing any essential nutrients and stuff, and I can actually see that in my blood work, and it's going to give me specific recommendations. So start with good whole foods if you're on processed food diet now. That's step number one. Step number two, if you want to go from white belt to blue belt to purple belt, is to maybe get some blood work and some lab work done to see where those deficiencies maybe really exist. And then the gut health that Coach Lawrence was talking about is huge too. When I was really having a lot of depression, anxiety symptoms, I was also having this simultaneous gut problems where I would just be undigested and I felt bloated and my I was constipated all the time and just things weren't flowing smoothly. And I know I had a lot of, overgrowth of bad bacteria and not enough beneficial bacteria in there. So supplementing with some acidophilus or some stuff that's going to help get your gut health back on track is going to be maybe really crucial for you. A lot of you guys that have been poisoning yourself with whether it be alcohol or NSAIDs or whatever for a long time. Get that shit out of your system and start to replenish.
Nice, brother. That's some real advice. I love this. When we were talking about the hydration you kind of mentioned earlier too, I find that I'm less likely to crave anything when I'm feeling pretty full, and water fills the space really well. So just a glass of water sometimes can knock a craving out of the park, right? Just because you're kind of like, I want something real fast, and then you take the water in there and it fills your belly and your craving's gone. It's kind of like an occupancy of space thing too. That's one of the things you mentioned earlier about hydration. And I find just a glass of water sometimes gives me the time to make the decision, even, do I really want that? In the moment, you might act very quickly and just be like, I'm craving it and it's there, I take it. And so convenience is a really, it's great if you got something readily available, like a good protein source, it makes it easy. But if you got something readily available, like a processed junk food in the cupboard, you're already making it real easy to get the stuff you shouldn't. So you're going to satisfy your craving real fast. But instead of reaching and grabbing anything, start with a glass of water. That might knock the craving rate out. It's going to give you a few minutes to take a breath, take a step back, and go, do I really need that? So that's another big tip there. But the one I really wanted to drive home was, when we're talking about it, most often the clients I've worked with are looking for either sweet or salty, right? Those are the cravings we seem to get. Something that's going to change we always talk about the serotonin into the brain, that chemical reaction, that dopamine hit, like something good has finally arrived, right? And the brain says, I want more of that. That's why we crave sugar so much, right? The sweets. So when we talk about good whole foods, and we're talking about things like fruit, we're talking about things like maybe even in the form of protein powder, which again is something we use. They come in some pretty sweet flavors now. You can get like chocolate peanut butter, one of my favorites. You can get, caramel salted peanut or whatever. Like there's so many good flavors in the protein supplement. If you're going to go that route, you're going to get the protein, which is what we want. You could also put that with something like a piece of fruit and make a smoothie. Now you're satisfying the sweets. And it almost, if you put it in the fridge, even make it cold, and you sometimes even freeze with, like, say, Greek yogurt or something like that, you could turn that into almost like an ice cream, a blender, right? And now talk about a solution of replacement for a craving that you were going to give into. You take maybe what is now a 300 calorie packed with nutrient craving snack, this protein smoothie snack with fruit and good, like Coach Aaron was talking about, you could add kale and vegetable type stuff to it and put greens, whatever. You could have that for 200 or 300 good quality calories, or you can go have like a 500 to 700 full of sugar calorie, going to put you guaranteed overweight, with like some, fast food chain ice cream fix or whatever snack you have in the cupboard, the quick candy. So when we always look for a replacement. We've preached this since day one, right? Replace the habit with a better habit. Make sure you know what that better option would be. And you're going to make that choice because it's in alignment with your super self. Brings us right back where we were, right? So always do what your super self would do. Don't reach into the cupboard and grab shit that you shouldn't be grabbing. Don't even have that there. We talked about it with the alcohol. Get it out of the house. Less likely to grab it. Instead, know what you should be grabbing as your alternative or your habit replacement. What do you think of that, Coach?
Yeah, yeah, get it out of sight, out of mind for sure.
Have
And
you got a super smoothie?
oh God, dude, I have a super shake? Yeah, I've got a super shake. I'll have to put it in the link in the show notes or something. It's a pretty crazy super shake.
Nice.
Yeah. And one thing I'd like to reiterate too is like we're not, totally down on alcohol and drinking necessarily. Like there's a bunch of guys out there that like to have a few beers, and that's fine and dandy. It's not bad for everybody. Some people just can't handle it. And we're talking to those specific people or the people in our forum that are reaching out, specifically wanting to know how that they can get off of alcohol and stuff because they've got a problem with it and they know it. So we're not saying telling everybody to drop the beer if that's your thing and you don't have a problem with it. And the last thing I
Right.
would say on the craving side of things too is a lot of people are craving essential amino acids and essential fatty acids. They're not getting enough of those in their diet. So like Coach Lawrence said before, like get that protein in. If you're getting that protein in, you're going to you're going to be getting those essential amino acids in there. And then essential fatty acids, your omega-3 fatty acids, your EPA and your DHA, those are really deficient in the majority of our diets. So, maybe you want to start taking a fish oil supplement or some krill oil or something like that, and make sure that you're not deficient in those, and those will help out your cravings as well.
Very good advice. I love the fish oils, man. I live by that. Literally, again, I'm trying to think of it in milligrams, or like 1,000 milligrams per capsule, I think, in the fish oils.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, and when I've talked to some of the people at the supplement stores and things like that, and some of the data that I've read up on, it recommends at least like 3,000 to 6,000 a day. Like higher dosage, the better on those. And I was like, oh, that's impressive. Like, I mean, it's important to know because if you're taking one a day, it might not have that full effect.
right.
And so sometimes on the container, it only tells you like, a serving is one capsule, but it's like a multivitamin. When you think about multivitamins, they're usually underdosed in every category, and you got to take more to get there. So when you're looking at it, and I love that you mentioned your Huberman Lab, the test that you're going to be doing, because what that's going to do is it's going to give you a bullseye, a target to shoot at in where you're deficient, rather than just taking like say a multivitamin for the sake of trying to top up all your areas. You're going to be able to dive in and really fix the problem at the root, right? The one that's
Yeah,
deficient the most. You can go now and get a high dosage supplement to replace that. So when we're talking about the fish oil and stuff, maybe you're low in omega-3s. And again, we know that those are great for the brain. We talk about fish being a good source of those omegas. And that's why as a kid, I was always told fish is your brain food. Eat your fish. It's your brain food. You'll be smart, right? We were told carrots is good for your eyes because again, it contains the vitamin and minerals for for improvement of sight. And so we were always told these foods led to stuff. Eat that because it's going to do this for you. But a lot of times we're getting back to those micronutrients. So omega, I love that you mentioned that the essential fats, very very good. Now, everything that we've talked about led to this next question. And this next question might be the deepest and most sentimental topic that Coach Aaron and I can talk about because we were both there for a dark period of our life, and it's due to depression. So the question is, what is the best way for me to get out of depression? I'm in a depressive state. And so we've been there. And in my story, again, go back to episode 1. You're going to hear Aaron's story. You're going to hear my story. We both hit a state of depression at one point in our journey. After I lost my Olympic dream due to injury, I felt like the world was taken from me. I lost everything that I had ever worked for. And I just said, forget it. I'm giving up on this entire thing. If I ate clean, I'm going to eat poor. If I worked hard, I'm going to not work at all. I'm going to offer nothing. I'm done. Right. And I went into a really dark, depressive state. And Coach Aaron, you've been there too. So this question from our Billy out there in the world says, what's the best way for me to get out of depression? And that's a big answer. But where would we start? What do you think?
Yeah, big one. Okay, so gosh, I'll probably go on about half a dozen different tangents on this one too, probably, right? So one thing, I mean, I like to think of it like this. It's not always just mental depression. A lot of people think they're just in a bad state of mind, but that could be the case. You could be not liking your life situation and need to change some life circumstances, but also keep in mind that it could be like metabolic and not just mental. So a lot of people are just not metabolically healthy. So there's this thing called like mitochondrial dysfunction where you're either in a state of like survival or thrival, and you can't be in either one like simultaneous. You can't be in the state of survival and then thrive at the same time, right? There's this, you know, kind of a what is it called? Where it's just like a,
Like
a
a spectrum
continuum.
or
Yeah,
yeah.
spectrum. So basically, you're using survival or thrival, and there's this thing called the cell danger response. I learned this. I went through one of Ari Whitman's. He has this program called the Energy Blueprint, and that's one of the things that I started to do when I was trying to get out of my depression is just optimize my energy levels. Because when you're depressed, your energy is low, and one of the reasons that your energy is low is because you're doing all these things that are putting you into a state of survival. You're putting toxicity in your body. You're not putting the right nutrients in your body. So realize that it's a multifaceted approach to getting your energy back and getting out of that state of depression. Um, and a lot of times it comes from like just rebalancing your neurotransmitters and your dopamine system and doing all those things that are going to put you more in a state of survival. And more than that, more even than putting the good stuff in, is at first taking the bad stuff out that's putting you in that stress response. So whether that's lifestyle factors that are making you in a state of stress and cortisol all the time, or it's putting poisons in your body, get that stuff out first, cleanse, detoxify yourself, get rid of that cell danger response that's perpetuating that fatigue and the depression, because whatever happens on a physiological is going to help, influence our psychological. So get that physiological in place, almost first probably. And then a lot of times for a lot of people, the psychological will follow. And if it doesn't, by making some of those physiological changes, then you can start looking into some other modalities and maybe lifestyle changes, seeing a therapist or someone that can dive into those, intricate mental aspects of your world as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so what I heard you say in there was that remove the poison, and I was using that reference analogy earlier about the soil. Is it poisoning your garden, right? What's going to grow? Whatever you feed grows, right? And that's the key. So if you keep feeding the negative into your depressive state, you can bet you're going to stay there. You're going to poison the soil, and more poisonous plants are going to grow. Right. And so, Coach Aaron, you're dead on there. I think that's a great place to start. We talked about gut health just a second ago. That's literally the soil, that's the garden. So, you got to clean up your nutrition. Most often, and I can tell you from experience, when I was in my depressive state, I had no desire to eat healthy. Nothing. In fact, I wanted to eat whatever I could find that was as bad for me as it could be because I spent my whole life trying to eat healthy up to that point. And when I lost my boxing dream, like I say, due to that injury that happened, I had invested so much good, healthy time of my life eating clean when everybody else was eating crap. And I wanted to eat the crap. I wanted to get in on the burgers, the pizzas, the fries, and whatever else, right? I wanted to eat all that and I couldn't. So guess what I wanted to do when I got depressed? Oh yeah, it was time to get in on that. It was going to be pizza takeout every night. It was going to be burgers and fries every time I left. If I even left the house, which was very rare, I was going to go and grab a fast food drive-through so nobody saw me, and I'm heading home. Right? That's it. And so I was never going to go sit in a restaurant where people could look at me. Didn't want anyone to see me like that. I was embarrassed to be in the state I was in. I had to go to work, and at work, I didn't even bring a meal. Guess what? I worked in the mall, or what we would call like retail environment. So inside of a mall, we all know they have a food court. Food court, oh, it's easy, right? Go bring your money, pay your food. They're gonna serve you something in 5 minutes. You only got a half-hour lunch break. Cool, got a whole meal ready for you. Here's 3,000 calories worth of garbage, and I'll pay it, and I'll eat it, and I'll enjoy it, right? Because my depressive mind says that's all in alignment with this super self. Right. And so the darkness, man, you keep feeding it, it keeps growing. So you got to do what Coach Aaron said and remove the darkness, remove the poison. You got to start changing the state. But it can begin with the gut health. That was definitely one of the things you started out with there in talking about the poison. And I wanted to elaborate on that with my analogy, because that garden and what grows inside it is up to you. You can be the gardener and grow, the most beautiful things in your life, or you can be the gardener who just lets it all go to shit and lives with that and goes, oh, everything in my garden is dead. And then you start telling yourself that, I can't keep a plant alive. I can barely keep myself alive. Well, guess what? That's what you're going to get more of. Thoughts are things, and what you tell yourself regularly becomes real. We've talked a lot about the law of vibration and alignment. We've had some great things happening for us in our life because of our mindset, like Coach Aaron and myself and our Ultimate Man podcast. some things are blowing up here. We got big things on the horizon. We got goals and visions, and we know what we want, but we also want you to be on that journey with us. So if you're sitting there depressed right now and you can say, well, I could stay here or I can get in with these guys and get some energy in my life. I could be part of something bigger. Start with the forum and community. Put yourself in an environment that has a better soil than yours. Great things can grow and you can make yourself accountable and have us pour into you some great value, right? Listening to this podcast is a great start. We want to congratulate you for being here listening right now. That's a great place to start. Absorb positive information, be around positive people. I think that's a great way to get out of depression, because if you surround yourself with loneliness and negativity or people of that not have that mind, they're only going to encourage you to stay there. Do you think that I'm on track there, Coach? Does that sound like in alignment with what you were talking about?
Yeah, totally. And when you're depressed, you don't feel like I at least I'll just talk from a personal perspective. I didn't feel like being in or around anybody. Like you said, you just want to crawl in a hole, stay in bed, not be around anybody, especially happy people and stuff used to irritate the hell out of me because they were on a totally different vibe. And I was like pissed off at the world. And like, I was like, why are they so freaking happy? My life sucks. Right.
That's a great
So,
point.
yeah. Yeah, put yourself
That's a great
around get around some positive energy, however, whatever form that comes in, and get out. You got to get out of your hole. At first it's going to be a little bit tough, but start making some of those changes, and you can make it happen, man.
Yes, absolutely. There's always hope if you want there to be. You got to really realize at first, kind of evaluate your current state and then where you want to be. And I love that we talked about it again when you said you got those tests done. We know what our bullseye is. What are we shooting for? Because again, if you're shooting at a target you can't see, you're going to miss it every time, right?
Yeah, and
You
and
know,
sometimes it could be something as simple as like, like a vitamin D is one of the big things that's deficient in a lot of our diets now. Like if you're low in vitamin D, that could be one of the reasons that you're depressed. Like, so do a freaking blood test, check out some of those simple remedies that you can rectify really easily and just rule those out, before you start going and seeing counselors for a year on end and stuff. Fix your body and your physiology first. And
That's a
yeah.
yeah, I love it. I love that you went to the blood work there. That's a great place to start because it's important to know what your goal is going to need to be. What's wrong? It could be more. It could be like you said, physical. It could be mental. It could be traumas and things that need to be dealt with. Find the root cause. Start working on the root cause, and ultimately take action. I think that's what really is the most important part. Nurture the soil and take action. Do something positive and change the state. That's such a good piece of advice. And again, the depression topic is very, very, hits home to both of us. It's very real for both of us. We understand it, but we also sit here today on the other side of it. There's a gap between where you are now and where you want to be. And how you close that gap is going to depend on the decisions you make and everything that you're using to bridge that gap. So build the bridge as strong as you can and have people like Aaron and I who have been blueprint constructing bridges for ourselves for a lot of years, right? Man, I'd ride over that bridge. I'd trust Coach Aaron to build the bridge for me if I needed one for sure. And that's important, right? So bond with people who have already experienced the bridging the gap, and you're going to find that you can do it a lot quicker. It took me 3 years to lose 80 pounds. I now teach that to clients within the first year. How's that possible? Speed is coming from the education and the experience. I'm able to avoid all the pitfalls that I went through over 3 years to now give to clients, and they can condense decades into days. That's the difference right there. Right. So ultimately, let's keep moving. The person who says, okay, I got past the depressive state. Thanks, guys. I appreciate the advice. I was able to bridge the gap. And now I'm working out and I'm trying to put on some muscle. And I've been working out really hard, but I'm not seeing any gains. I've hit this, what they call plateau, I guess. What do I do? How do I make something happen here? What do you think, Coach? Where do we take the plateau?
The plateau. Well, oh my gosh. Okay, so it could be from your nutrition not being on point. If you're not making gains, are those strength gains? I'm assuming probably strength and probably trying to gain some muscle and stuff. Oh yeah, yeah, gain some muscle. Look like yeah. So you got to make sure that you're in a calorie surplus or maintenance right there. Make sure your nutrition's on point. Make sure you're getting your macronutrients, your protein, your healthy fats, sufficient carbohydrates if you're doing the carbs. Um, and then what is your training protocol looking like? You could be overtraining, you could be training too much, and that's leading to a state of just, kind of stagnation because you're just you're overtaxing yourself and you're not allowing yourself to grow, or you could be undertraining. Probably more people are more frequently undertraining and not training with a sufficient amount of an intensity or frequency to be able to see the muscle gains. Um, what does your exercise selection look like? That's why it's so hard to answer some of these questions without like just talking to the person and going deep and dive a little bit more and like asking them some more specific questions, what's going on in their life, like we do in the forum and stuff, because then we could really dial this in with some more specificity. Now it's just kind of like I can make general recommendations, but I almost don't even like to do that anymore because people will take this general recommendation and they'll try to go with it and be like, oh, the coaches said try this, and then they'll go and try that for a little bit. But maybe that wasn't really in the big macrocosm picture of what they need to focus on. What wasn't really the biggest lever that they could pull at the moment, but that's what they took from
Mhm.
this conversation. So a lot of times, even when, I talk to people and they're like, what should I do about this? I'm like, sometimes I won't even tell them until I find out. I need to find out more about your situation, basically. Long story short, without giving
Yeah.
these blanket statements, right?
Totally. I love that because when people come to you, one of the first things they always say is, okay, well, how much does it cost to work with you? Like, if that's your first question, you have no real focus on what your goal is and what you're trying to achieve. Because if you want something bad enough, first of all, you'll pretty much pay whatever it costs to get it. If you know it's going to be valuable, you're going to get the end result you want, you're going to pretty much pay anything I've come up with money for things I didn't know I could afford. You know what I mean? Because I wanted them bad enough. So money should never be the issue that stands between. And we're not trying to say, hey, if you're struggling financially, we don't care. We do care. We don't want to see anyone struggle. I think being part of the ultimate man is also figuring out your financial situation and bettering that as well. Like learn from people who know about those worlds, investments and things like that, and how to manage money and budget and stuff. Those are valuable traits to the ultimate man as well, in my opinion. But again, when people come in and they want to know, well, what does it cost to work with you? It's like, we don't even know what you need. We've got a lot of different programs. You might be very experienced and just need a small tweak. That's not going to cost as much as you really need a whole year's worth of training. We got to start with some rehabilitation. The more that is involved, the more you pay because that's where you're getting the services, right? But you're getting the experience and everything else. So again, this isn't supposed to be a, how much does it cost program, but it pisses me off when people start out with, well, what's this going to cost? Like as if they could generalize you into a bucket of all the great trainers out there, and I'm just going to go with the cheapest one. Well, you're going to get the cheapest one then, right? That pisses me off. What I'd rather is let's sit down and let's talk. Let's start there. When I can figure out what you need, then we can talk about prescription of how much time it will take. Like I told you, the husband and wife that came to me, they came in and they needed full rehabilitation from the start. And it took us a year and I got 120 pounds off of her. What do you think she would have paid for that if I told her what the cost was up front? She would have
Right.
said, "Oh my God, I'll pay anything." And then when I gave her the total, she would have said, "I can't afford that." Right? That's natural. And what they were buying was like $3,600 training packages, one after another. And some of you are going to say, that's expensive. How expensive is it to her to feel the way she feels now, fully rehabilitated, back in the workforce, confident, a representative of her family, the mother who has the strength and the confidence, him, the husband, and he's back to work. They told him he'd never work again. He works, he drives, he does everything they said he'd never do. And he's functional and he's strong and he's confident. Is that worth anything? Like you can't put a price tag on that. So again, I don't know how I even got here. I just went completely off. But the point is, Coach Aaron's saying we need to sit down with you. If you want to dive in deep and get a real answer, we got to find out what it is you need. And we can't base it on how much is this going to cost. There's no cookie cutter out there that it should be, this is going to work for you. The answer is always, if it's a good experienced coach, the answer is always, it depends. It really depends on the individual. So I'm going to bring it back to the question and try to get back on track. I want to put on
That
some muscle.
that was gold though. I mean, it's literally priceless. Like how much would you pay to get out of serious depression and anxiety and like reclaim your life? Like you can't put a price point on that. Like you said. So if you need some help, we've got in our show notes, you could just reach out to us for a consultation or reach out to us on our social media handles. Like we're here to help you out. That's why we do what we do. We love what we do. We love to see people
Yeah.
transform. So that's why we're here. Reach out.
Nice. Beautiful. And again, thank you for having my back there, coach. I got completely off track. But again, that's the passion, guys. I want to give you the real deal, right? We're not here to blow smoke up your ass and give you, we've studied these high ticket coaching programs and we're going to hit you with all this marketing genius and everything else. We want to be raw and unfiltered. We want to be real with you. And we hope that you appreciate that. And that's why you're here. And if you have friends who are in need of help, send them the link to this episode, send them the link to our channel and tell them start following these guys. They're not going to bullshit you. They're going to give you real experience. So we appreciate that. Obviously, share it as much as we can. You're helping us grow, but you're also helping your friends find answers to some of the areas they might be struggling with in life. So you want to put on some muscle. We talked about fixing up the training. And I think that the best way to frame it, and we're going to give some gold here. I give this to clients. It's literally the acronym FIT: frequency, intensity, time, and type. And if you write that down, FITT, you can write down, how do I change the frequency of my workouts? How do I change the intensity of the workout? How about the time that I spend on the workout? And how about the, what did I say? Frequency,
The
intensity,
type.
time, and type. The type,
Yep.
yeah. And so the last one is, how do I change the type? What type of workout am I doing? Could I change the modality? We talked about bands, kettlebells, dumbbells, barbells. There's a lot of different ways to go about it. Change just the type, and you could see a breakthrough and a plateau. Kind of create a novel experience, and your body's going to adapt. Remember, the body is a beautiful creature of adaptation. It adapts. It adapts to the world you put it in most frequently. So change the world you're putting it in, and watch it adapt. And it could be a small little tweak, and it breaks through a plateau. So that's the best advice I can give. What do you think, coach?
Yeah, love it. Great acronym. FIT: frequency, intensity, type, and time and type. Yeah, you gotta address those factors first, and just the novel approach and switching it up. A lot of people are just stuck doing the same thing they've been doing for months or years, and they're like, "Why aren't I seeing any progress?" Like, try something new. Reach out to a
Mhm.
coach that's going to give you a new approach.
Ah, nice. We're gonna write that down right there. Reach out to a coach for a new approach. I like it. I like a t-shirt with a slogan on there.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And so, Coach Aaron, I know that you're passionate about this because it's something that you've been working with. You've worked with a lot of coaches in the business world, and you've thrived to build yourself, to build your business, to build your education. And we got a question in regards to the podcast because people have seen us now succeeding in our podcast world. We're just getting started, guys, and we're very excited about it, but we're building out frameworks and stuff. And coach, I know you're excited about this because you've always said, I've worked with a lot of clients in the health, fitness, weight loss and stuff, but you have a desire to work with coaches and actually coach coaches to build their businesses in the fitness world and stuff. And I think that's fantastic. I love that vision. We've always said, let's dream big, man. Let's chase big dreams, bigger than what we can imagine, and stuff that people believe to be like, oh, you guys can't do that. Well, watch us, right? We're coming. And so Coach Aaron has this desire to coach coaches. But this person's asking, what if I want to start my own podcast? My own online coaching business. And I was like, this is the perfect question for you, coach. Where do I get started? What do you think this guy should do?
Um, there's a lot of, I'll tell you my struggles when I initially got started. I signed up for a lot of coaching programs that they charge a ridiculous amount. I mean, you'll pay like three, four, five, $6,000 for these coaching programs. There are a lot of them are great. I got some great value from all of them, actually. I mean, it was well worth the investment. But at the same time, they all have their own way of going about building a business. And it all comes down to like really finding out, what is the method that feels most in alignment for you? So a lot of coaches and stuff are telling you to this particular protocol to build your business, and they have this system. But if you try that system out, a lot of times you're going to find, at least I found, that it doesn't work for me. Like, I'm not the type of person that likes to do a bunch of cold outreach and like reach out to people and like, hey, buy my shit, buy my shit. It's just not me. I'm just like, I'd much rather, put myself out on a podcast like this, or make videos that are fun to make, and workout videos, and be like, here's what I do. If you resonate with me and you like my style, I can help you out. Here's how we can get in touch. So that's kind of the method that I figured out that worked for me. So I would say, save yourself a lot of time and model someone who's already I've been doing this for 10 years now, online business. So, it's all about attracting the type of person you want to work with. Attract, sell, and serve. Okay. You got to first attract them. So what is your method for attracting them? Whether it's a podcast or social media, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, find the platform that's going to resonate with you, that you're going to feel good about putting stuff out there on, so people can be attracted by you. and then sell to them. I like to think of the acronym SELL as serve with enthusiasm, light, and love. Like it's not a sales thing. I'm not trying to get your money. I'm trying to like serve you with my
Absolutely.
enthusiasm and my light and my love. Like it's a win-win reciprocal relationship. So you need to think of it like that. And then
Mhm.
serve them. The final part is just to be able to serve them. And so there's a lot of ways to be able to serve them. You can do so, in like our ultimate man forum, like we do. You could do more of like a one-on-one approach. Like again, you need to find out what works for you. But I would say, reach out to me if you're looking for help. If you're just getting started, you don't know where to start. Save yourself some time and frustration and money, and don't necessarily sign up for one of those high ticket courses like right off the bat, because you might be severely disappointed when you spend several grand and it's just still not getting you to where you think you want to be. And just
Mhm.
kind of let me show you the ropes, because there's a lot of stuff to learn. There's a lot, but you don't need to implement all of it. You just need to implement what works for you, and I can help expedite that process. So again, reach out to us if you need some help, or you're just getting started and you want to start your own personal training, coaching business, and just get your feet wet in the right way.
Beautiful. That comes back to the fitness, to the nutrition, to the building of a business. It's all find a mentor, find a coach, find someone who can speed up the process for you, and then invest in the outcome you're looking to get. And, it's going to make a big difference in all those worlds. Talking about how some of those courses that are out there are, how do I make $10,000 in the first month or whatever, and you sign up to it and they're giving you this, cold market outreach stuff, the stuff you said you don't want to do, right? The things you actually hate doing, the stuff that pisses people off. You show up in their inbox and you're hitting on them or hitting them up or whatever, to try to like, buy my thing, buy my thing. It's like, that's annoying and it's discouraging and it's killing the industry of good people like ourselves who really genuinely want to help. And people are afraid to ask now because they've put this guard up against that type of behavior, right? And they're expecting you to only basically be there to take their money, leave them with very little information and application, and they're not getting anything out of it. You've been through a lot of high ticket courses yourself, coach. You said you've taken something valuable from each of them, but even then, certain ones really stood out to you, I'm sure, that really did have the bigger impact. And now you're bringing all those courses together and you want to give that information to someone who's getting started and avoid all those road bumps, even from the highest levels, right? Because there's
Yeah.
still some road bumps there that weren't valuable to you. So the guy who's got the question here saying, I'm trying to put together a podcast or an online coaching business, where do I start? Mentorship is absolutely huge. I think that's a really big place. And again, you can get a lot of information from Coach Aaron. So just reach out. You can reach us. How do they contact you again, Coach?
Um,
ultimatemanforum.com.
no, they can just go to in our show notes here in the YouTube description or the Spotify or wherever you're watching, and we have a little link to our social handles, and in there you can see like schedule a consultation with Coach Jameson in there. So just schedule
Okay.
a call on my calendar.
Nice. Nice. That is good. Okay, so we are pretty much at the end here now. We've covered a lot of really great questions again today. The question number 8, and it's going to be based on one of the things we talked about in our main event episode that we called Never Knocked Out. You haven't checked that out? Check that out. We made a prediction on a UFC fight that took place on the weekend, and we made the prediction obviously in advance. We said who we thought was going to win, Sean Strickland or Dracus du Plessis. We made the prediction. The fight happened. We want to talk about that. The outcome of the fight. Were we right? Were we wrong? You stuck around and you waited for it, so you're going to find out now. But the question that actually framed all of this was, who were your favorite MMA fighters? Who were your favorite boxers? And why? What were the reasons you liked them the most? So there's 2 parts to this conversation, and we're going to end the show on this conversation. So, Coach Aaron, first of all, do you want to go into your favorite fighter, why they were your favorite, what inspired you, or do you want to go into the Strickland versus du Plessis predictions?
Let's go to the favorite fighter first.
Okay,
Favorite fighter, and then why they're your favorite fighter. Right. Yeah. It's kind of
perfect.
like a
Let's do it.
two part. I can't pick one favorite fighter, man. There's so many. Like I've been in this sport for so long. Like, and then there's boxing, and then there's MMA. There's like all the different disciplines as well. So I mean, I could go on forever. So I'm just gonna ramble right off the top of my head. Some of my favorites. I might miss some of them too, but like Like Tyson obviously was one of my big ones growing up. Like Tyson, and just because he's just ferocious and just a killer, man. I love that guy. He's just so powerful. And then some of my MMA fighters, Randy Couture, GSP, Dan Henderson, who was on Randy Couture's camp. Those guys just fought until they were in their like mid late 40s, and they're just studs. Plus, they're just super cool, authentic dudes. And then some of the other MMA guys that I think of, I'm going old school because I'm old AF for one thing. So there's a lot of new guys that I probably won't throw in the mix, even though there's a lot of new guys up and comers that are absolutely awesome too. But like some of the old school fighters I really liked was like Don Fry. You guys remember Don Fry? Probably he had some like just awesome battles. Boss Rutan is one of my favorites. I did a lot of training with him, not personally, but just like his courses and stuff. Sakuraba was in Pride. Pride was one of the old good ones. Sakuraba was just this like absolute like technician that would like take on the Gracies and do really cool. I just liked his style. He was just so kind of like crazy and unpredictable. Vanderlei Silva, another one that was just an absolute beast that would just come out there just like ferocious, like the silverback gorilla, and just try to take people's heads off. Rod Tang, if you've never seen Rod Tang, he's like a Muay Thai fighter. He was one of my absolute favorite just because, again, he's just so, man, he's just like made of steel, dude. You can just hit him and he's just like keeps coming at you like a machine. So those are some of the old school guys. And then, all the new up and comers. Again, the list is too long to go over, but I like them just because of their tenacity and their overall how they carry themselves in the world as well. Most of these guys are also not only just good fighters, but pretty cool dudes if you met them in person. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's my
I was
story.
listening to I was listening to your list there, and again, this is all unscripted, folks. So we're not like we've rehearsed this or anything. This is real. I'm listening to the list for the first time, just like you. I've never heard this before. Again, I guess I think I saw a commonality, I guess, and knowing almost every fighter you mentioned. I can't say I've followed all their careers by any means, but I'm aware of everyone you mentioned. They all have that tenacity factor. They all have that absolute aggressive approach to kill or be killed type of thing. Again, and this is just my hearing the list. And again, that not being said, like I mean, there's different attributes to each of them. Randy Couture, I would see on a different level of kill or be killed. I don't think he's got that same. But again, his work ethic was kill or be killed. Like he worked at that level, even though maybe he didn't fight at that level, like a Tyson or I think the one guy was referred to as a Gracie killer, wasn't he? At one point, the
Sakuraba,
Sakuraba.
Sakuraba probably was, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, he fought every Gracie, and he was taking the whole family down. And the Gracies were the best of the best in the jiu-jitsu world, right?
Yeah.
And again, I watched some of those crazy fights in Japan and stuff. But again, there was just this sheer determination and will to win in almost every fighter's name you mentioned. Not all of them were big name champions, but they all had that same common denominator, like a Vanderlei Silva, and I mean, they call the Axe Murderer these nicknames, right? They were to
Yeah.
represent the lifestyle or whatever it was about this guy that made him. That was his fighter nickname. That's kind of a fun thing. Did you obviously your nickname was it Superman, or did you create that yourself, or did you have an MMA nickname?
The anaconda was one of the announcers referred to me as just like he choked him out just like an anaconda because I was really good at chokes like guillotines and triangles and stuff. So I kind of
Yeah.
adapted that. Yeah, Aaron the anaconda.
Makes sense, right? A lot of times they try to be clever with it using your name, like Aaron with an A,
Yeah,
Anaconda with
yeah,
an
yeah.
A. I did the same thing back in my boxing career. My striking speed was not really the best, but they started using because my first name being Lawrence with an L, they came up with Lightning, so it was like Lightning Lawrence Lalonde. It was three L's, and I was like, I'm probably the furthest thing from lightning, really. But it's just like sometimes you get nicknames that I wanted to think that my lightning strike power was like a one shot deal. You don't have to get hit twice to kill you. You know what I mean? Like finish it off. But that wasn't really the case. But anyway, talking about all the
Nice.
fighters you listed, I think that the fighters you listed all have a really, really common denominator in their work ethic and their desire to finish it, right? To see it through. So, I mean, that says a lot about you, your personality, your desire to, to fight for it, see it through and finish it,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
cool. That's what I appreciate about you, brother. So, It's pretty neat. And I thought this question was actually cool because it puts it in perspective of the fight game and why you like these people and kind of how it aligns with your personality. See, on my
Yeah.
list, I like all the guys that you mentioned, but as far as like if I called favorite fighters, the ones that I role modeled or idolized were nowhere near as aggressive, nowhere near as I would look at Muhammad Ali, right? And Muhammad Ali would be my boxing one over Mike Tyson. Now, stylistically, completely different, but the approach was cerebral. For
Yeah.
Muhammad Ali, it was a mind game. It was a chess match. And we all remember in episode 1, we talked about it. Coach Aaron was like, I'm coming across the octagon and I'm finishing this in a minute. That's my goal. That's very Mike Tyson-ish, isn't it? And then my
Yeah.
goal was more like the chess match, the slow, steady, win on points if need be, but I want to really out showcase my boxing skills. And that was more the Muhammad Ali, the mind game. So I look at, when it comes to boxing, guys like Pernell Whitaker. And again, if you want to look any of these names up, if you're watching this, go ahead and watch these back and just catch an old YouTube clip of some of these fighters and you'll see what we're talking about. My style was more that cerebral, stylistic chess match approach. And so Pernell Whitaker was an absolute favorite defensively, very hard to hit, smooth as silk, this guy. And then Oscar De La Hoya. And again, a lot of people know him today because he's become a bit of a social media celebrity. But in the boxing world, when he first came in, he had an amazing, decorated amateur boxing career, very, very stylistically successful. And then he brought that skill directly into the pros. He was one of the only ones at that time who was boxing with an amateur style that was so tight defense and so disciplined. And it wasn't pro style. Like pro style was very relaxed. We're going to pace this out. My hands are down here at my shoulders, and Oscar was hands up, very amateur, very protected, collecting points. Like he still kept the chess match approach and he was doing extremely well as a professional using that. Then the Klitschko's came in. So in boxing, again, the Klitschko's very amateur style transferred over. But you could see that related with my personality. It was chess match. It was point winning. And again, these guys had power and they maybe scored some knockouts, but stylistically, the approach wasn't just, kill now or be killed. It was more, I'm going to wear you down. I'm going to outthink you. I'm going to game plan you until you got nothing left. I'm going to win this thing. Right. So I just think that's really cool that our personalities align with that and
Yeah.
our favorite players. And then GSP for both of us. So we both have that respect aspect because I think that when it comes down to it, he had all the aspects of everything that we talked about. And again, we keep harping on GSP. You got to get this guy on the show because he's everything we stand for. But ultimately, his level of respect. I mean, he bowed before fights and like he just did all these things in interviews. He was graceful. If he won, he was graceful. If he lost, he was graceful. In everything. And I think that his level of respect for the arts, for the people involved. It was even more than his fighting approach or his training approaches or any of that. So, and again, Randy Couture kind of crossed me that way too. I liked him for that level of authenticity and respect. So in the MMA world, GSP and Randy top my list. As far as, and again, I think that's in alignment with my character. You're like attracts like, right? You see yourself in these
Yeah.
fighters. That's what
Yeah.
makes us want to cheer for them even more. And then I saw George come back and beat Michael Bisping for a belt. And long after George had even retired, remember, he came back and he fought again and he beat Michael Bisping, who was the champion at the time. And nobody gave George I shouldn't say nobody gave him a chance, but the odds were against him. He's older now. He's been out for a while. He comes back, has an amazing fight with Bisping. If you haven't seen it, check that out on YouTube. And George ends up winning by a knockout late in the fight. It was like the world went nuts. And I was so happy for him, and then you see yourself in it and you go, it's not too late for me. I can do this. I could come back, even though I'm 40 years old now. This is just the beginning. And again, we look at the human genome stuff that's going on in the world right now. Every year, there's more technology being created that's extending people's life by about 10 years. What's your life going to look like when you get to maybe 80, 90, 100? We don't even know anymore. People's lives are getting longer because we're taking better care of health and genetically you can get stem cell work done. And there's just so many things out there. And these fighters back then, we call the old school, they didn't have access to any of that. They were built on that raw determination and old school mentality. Now there's a lot more happening. So I just thought it was a real cool conversation, bro, to kind of see your list of fighters and then my list and how they were different. And I didn't even know we were going to go this route until I heard your list of fighters. But that's what I'm taking from this is we're picking people that are really in alignment with our character and we see ourselves in. Would you
Yeah,
agree?
yeah. Oh, totally, dude. That's so cool that you brought that up too. Yeah, you're like a total tactician, strategist and chess player, and I'm just like I try to go out there and just kill you with everything I got, kind of type mentality. but it's cool because we work really so well synergistically together. And if you're a brother out there and you don't have someone that you're working real synergistically with, you are real compatible with, like you're one type of person, find someone that you can really kind of just like, partner up with, buddy up with, and then maybe they can be your accountability partner on your fitness journey. And if you don't have a person like that, that's one of the reasons we're here, so that you can just kind of, soak up some of those other people's vibration that maybe you're missing some components in your life. Like I could use a little more strategicness in my life, so I can soak up some of that from Coach Lawrence, and then vice versa, get some of that in
Mhm.
your life. Yeah, that's cool.
I love that, man. My heart actually feels warm. It's a weird feeling, man. I feel like this is a moment of like realization, and you get that like that. They talk about the light bulb that goes off, the aha, right? But I actually feel that right now because you're talking about completing somebody, and it's
Yeah.
like I have always lacked that killer aggressive instinct to get things done. I've had this strategy. I can put together the perfect blueprint, but implementation is that full-on aggressive approach. That's Coach Aaron. You complete that, and like you're saying, find a brother who does this for you, and maybe you resonate with me, and you're more of a strategic guy. You're listening to this and going, I like Coach Lalonde way better than I like Coach Jameson because I just feel I connect with him better. And then you might be on the other side saying Coach Jameson like gets me fired up, man. I love his no bullshit approach. It's now or never, right? We're gonna do this. Suck it up, Buttercup, right? And you connect with that. You go, Coach Lalonde's a bit soft for me. I don't really like that strategic approach. I just want to get at it now. Well, somewhere in the middle of that, you can find the perfect ultimate man, right? Combining and completing each other. And I think what a great way to end the show on this aspect. And then, of course, the predictions of how our last fight turned out.
Yeah, yeah.
But dude, this was an amazing episode, and I had no idea it was going to end the way it did with such a great aha moment for me in realizing that your fight list, your list of fighters resonated with you. You saw yourself in it, and mine did the same for me. I didn't even realize that when I made my list until you made yours and told me about it. So that was
Yeah.
super cool, man. So now we
Yeah.
didn't have a favorite in a way of like, I don't see myself in Dracus Duplessis as much as, like you might not see yourself in Sean Strickland, but also, I'm kind of looking at it now going, Strickland is a little bit more of the hard nosed, say what he wants to say, don't hold back. We heard it in the press conferences. He was just
Yeah.
raw, man. He was not afraid to offend Canada whatsoever, call out the prime minister, talk about our state of politics, the whole. He was just going at it. He went after the all the different, right? I mean, anyway, watch the press conference if you didn't see it. But Sean Strickland held nothing back. Dracus Duplessis a little bit more of what I expected, the strategic game planner. And again, just alignment with me. And I did not pick it that way, but I didn't realize that it was in alignment with what we just talked about. So I went with Dracus, and you went with Sean. And it was actually a much closer fight than a lot of people may have expected. There was a judging scorecard that could have went either way, depending what you were scoring and how you saw it. But the winner at the end ended up being Dracus Duplessis. He won on a decision, and I believe the scorecards were 4 judges to 1, which sounds. Am I wrong about that, or was it 3-2? I can't remember. It might have been three
I'm
two.
not positive. I think maybe 3-2, but I don't quote me on that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I could be wrong on that too. But again, it was closer than it seemed, right? And it depended how you scored the fight. So, Coach, when you watched it, obviously you lived it live. I don't know if you watched it back but you thought about it for sure, because I know I did. What was your take? How did you break it down, and how did you see it play out?
Yeah, so I've got one question here. Is where did you watch? So one thing that I watched it in a casino, in like a busy bar casino.
Okay.
And one thing, I'm looking at my notes here. Excuse me. Did you listen to it with the commentary during the UFC? Probably with the
Yes.
com. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I was
Yes.
watching Jesse on Fire. If you've seen Jesse on Fire, he does a lot of the post UFC show stuff on YouTube. He's got a great channel.
Excellent.
So yeah, I was listening to him, and he had this really good take on it. Because I didn't watch it with any commentary. I was just watching the fight, and he said that the first time he watched it, he thought that Dricus won. Right? Is it Dricus or Dreckus? I
Yeah.
forget how to.
Yeah.
Close enough.
Probably either way. Yeah.
Drickus. Anyways, he thought that he won the first time, and then he watched it the second time, and then he thought that Sean won. Okay, and he also said that both Joe Rogan and Dana White and the judge on the panel that had the most experience out of all the judges all thought that Sean Strickland won as well. So I thought that that was real interesting. I was doing a little just
Mm-hmm.
research this morning. So I
Yeah.
watched it without any commentary. So Jesse was like, maybe he was swayed a little bit by the commentary while he was watching it the first time. Maybe that's why he thought that Drickus had won. So I was watching the fight, and I honestly thought it was close as hell, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I still thought that Sean probably won a little bit, even though there's so many ways you could say that Drickus got more takedowns and probably maybe had a little better octagon control and stuff like that for sure. But I thought maybe Strickland did a little bit more damage and just landed some more shots, even though they were not super hard shots. Like it was just a super close fight. Anyways, I thought that was interesting as to whether you watched the commentary and you were potentially influenced by that, or you watched it without the
Like that.
commentary and you just kind of had your own perception of how the fight went down, regardless.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I liked it.
I thought it was a toss up. It could have probably gone either way. I thought that probably I was hoping Sean would have picked it up a little bit in the later rounds and like really like just brought it to him a little bit harder. And I thought that Drixus was gonna gas out a little bit, but he didn't. His cardio was just there the whole time too, and he was definitely a savage. I'm not sure if he did enough to take it from a champion. In my opinion, he probably should have like edged it out a little bit more clearly than he did to take it from a champion. So that's my opinion.
Mhm. You're right. Yeah, you're right. And I think this could go either way. My take on it was based on, again, I'm going to frame it one way: boxing versus MMA. Sean Strickland won the boxing match by a landslide. His jab was lethal. I mean,
Yeah.
he damaged Dracus's face so bad with that jab. There was one or two rounds though where I questioned if Sean maybe broke his hand on the right side because he just wasn't using it very much. And I don't think that was the case, but he just wasn't throwing it to my liking. But his jab was lethal. He started the fight out with a teep kick, which was actually a sign of MMA, mixed martial arts, right? And he was using that effectively, but then he stopped. I don't know why, whether the game plan was to abort plan on that or what. But I thought that set up his punches better. It gave a little bit of something else to be concerned with, right? But then he went back to what I call his comfort zone, and that's the boxing. And he's great at it, but it's just one dimension. And so as I was watching him score those punches, no doubt about it, they were significant jabs. But a jab, in my opinion, in an MMA fight doesn't take as much credit on my scorecard, right? And that's just different for me. But being a boxer, I can appreciate the hell out of it. It was a beauty. And again, he beat Adesanya with his shoulder roll and right hand counter technique. He wasn't using that as much in this fight. He wasn't really using the right hand to the effect that I thought he should be at all. I thought he used his jab pretty much the whole fight. And I'm like, I don't want to call a guy a champion of an MMA with one thing, one tool. I want to see
Yeah.
a guy who's got a well-rounded set. And I know Sean has it. He just didn't show any of it, in my
Mhm.
opinion. But then Dricus tried to at least incorporate a couple different things. He changed levels a little bit. He tried for a takedown. Didn't get very successful. I mean, he had a few takedowns. They weren't long. He didn't stay on top or control. But he was pushing forward, which we know octagon control is something they score. You got to be moving forward and showing you want to win. And Sean was moving backwards most of the time. So I give Dracus a little edge there. And again, it was just those little edges that kind of in my scorecard gave Dracus the win. It wasn't massively impressive and I agree with you too, where it said you got to really dominate a champion to beat him on a scorecard. And I think that's where Dana White stepped in and said, yeah, that's why I give it to Sean. It was close enough that you got to be the man, you got to beat the man, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
an old Ric Flair quote, woo. And, I don't think he literally beat him. He just out MMA'd him, in my opinion. Right. He pushed a little more pressure. He took it to the cage, a little bit of grapple. He took it to the ground, a little bit of takedown, and he mixed the martial arts. So that's my take on it. I think Dracus wins the fight slightly because he mixed the MMA a little better. Significant strikes are in favor of Sean because the only significant striking that was done was that jab. Really, I mean, the
Yeah.
striking. Now, not to say that Dracus's kicks that he threw in weren't significant. He did throw some kicks. And again, that's in my opinion showing a little bit more of the mixed martial arts. Like he used his legs, not just his hands. So he mixed it up a bit. So man, it was a good fight. It wasn't as glorious as I hoped it was going to be. I thought it was going to be like a barn burner,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
showcase. It wasn't. But I can appreciate both sides of how they played it out. I think they both could have done a little more.
Yeah.
Easy for us to say sitting in our chairs, right? We were both
Right.
in there. We
Yeah.
both been in there too and went, holy shit, like if I try to do any more, I'm risking getting caught. I'm also
Yeah.
risking my gas tank. I'm risking, there's a lot of risks that are involved too when you try to pour it on like that. So yeah, man, I thought it was a good fight. I'm looking forward to more from both of these guys. And now that Drakus holds the title, what's next for him will be exciting to see, and where Sean goes, because now Sean has suffered the loss of the title. How hungry is he to get it back? Right? Does it mean anything? He claimed it meant nothing to him in the interviews. He said, "I don't give a shit about this belt. It means nothing to me. I'm champion today. I'm not tomorrow. Whatever. It doesn't make a difference." So is Sean even hungry to go get it back? Does it matter? I mean, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, and then how Drakus defends the title. Who's next for him? Will Adesanya come back into the picture? Is he going to be back where he was? Is he going to be what he used to be? It's a fun world, man. I love the MMA game. And I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to some more chats about it as well. So, what do you
Yeah.
want to end on today, Coach? What are your final thoughts?
Well, they said I was looking on the research in the fight, and they said that 62% of like they did a poll of like 20 plus thousand people or something want to see the rematch between Strickland and DDP again. So that's what the general consensus is. And I guess the next upcoming fight would either be between Adesanya or maybe Hamzat. So that's a
Mm-hmm.
potential too.
Right.
So great episode, brother. This was freaking phenomenal as always.
Yeah.
And all our busy baller brothers out there, if you want to get buff and tough, hey, join our team of the Ultimate Man. Be sure to like, and subscribe if you dig our vibe. And check us out in the show notes for all of our links to everything, and be a part of the super crew.
That's it. So the Billies of the world part 2 is complete. You've got the answers to the questions that have been burning in your mind as to how to improve your life. Out of the things we've talked about in part 1 and part 2, you've got to take some action. We've covered so much in here. All you got to do is take one thing, find some action on it, and you're going to turn your life around and become a better version of yourself, working towards your super self, your ultimate man. So, Coach Aaron, again, appreciate you, brother. It's been an amazing time working on all of this with you. I love our conversation, and I look forward to the next one. So, all the boys out there, it's time. Bring it in.
Yeah.